from the entertaining speaker manual, the third project, Make Them Laugh. So warm up your vocal cords now as we introduce somebody who will be intimately introducing us to a gentleman that he was at Radley with in the 1950s. A gentleman whose works he will be reading out in the time limit, please. Please welcome, giving us the works of his dear friend, Peter Cook, our dear friend, George Metcalfe.
Mr. President, start the clock now. I need all the 7 minutes. Mr. President, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. I was at school with Peter Cook. I'm probably one of the very few people in this room who actually remembers him. Who remembers Peter Cook? Not all of you, not all of you. And yet Peter Cook, who was a year younger than me and died in 1997, was probably the most influential comedic influence in this country, probably, and was behind so many of the funny comedy things that he invented. When we were at school together, we used to write scripts, and literally we used to fall on the floor with laughter because his wit and his ability to make things funny was just outrageous. And so I've always been a huge fan of his. And really what I wanted to do today is to share with you just one or two of the things that he created, the things that he did. However, to start with, one of his most famous characters he called E.L. Whisty. I'm going to show you E.L. Whisty in a moment, but he was actually based on a Radley College servant called Harold Boylett. Harold Boylett used to clean shoes, and he would make remarks like, "I have been watching that stone for the last 20 minutes, and it moved." And what Peter did, and I guess I was with him, I think I probably can claim a little bit about inventing E.L. Whisty, was that he created him as a most wonderful character. The other character who I know very well, and I'm never ever going to tell you or anybody else who it is that one of Peter's characters was called Spotty Muldoon. Spotty Muldoon really was very, very spotty. He was spotty, and I will tell you more about Spotty. Spotty Muldoon later got a CBE, but again, I'm not going to tell you. It wasn't for having spots, but I'm going to tell you who Spotty Muldoon is. So let's first of all remember the E.L. Whisty character, who I must say I used to laugh all the time like mad when I used to see Peter doing it, and it was just absolutely crazy. So if I can put this coat on. Don't know if you remember that Peter would, when he was doing Spotty Muldoon, he would have, I have to have glasses because I can't read it otherwise, but he would have his this coat on and a dodgy up to the eyes here, and he would have he would have his, well, he wouldn't have his script, but oddly enough he couldn't ever remember his script, but I used to love this one. He would sit like this and say,
"I could have been a judge if I had the Latin. Never had the Latin for judging, I never got sufficient of it to get through the rigorous judging exams. They're noted for their rigour. People came staggering out saying, my God, what a rigorous exam. And so I became a minor instead. A coal miner. I managed to get through the mining exams. They're not very rigorous. They only ask one question. They say, who are you? I got 75%. So spotting Muldoon is really absolutely blissful. I'm really fond of Spotty Muldoon. The other character, or one of the other characters, which of course you will easily remember, is Dudley Moore. Now you all know Dudley Moore because he took part in 10, and he was only, Peter Cook was about 6'1", 6'2", very tall, very elegant, very beautiful, handsome man. And little Dudley Moore was, of course, a piano genius with a club foot, and very funny, who came from a totally different background. And you remember when Dudley Moore came in like this, and Peter Cook at that time was being an actor's agent, and the thing was, Peter Cook said, "Mr. Spigot, I believe." And Dudley Moore would say, "Yeah, Spigot, that's my name. Spigot by name, Spigot by nature." and Peter Cook said, "Yes, there's no need to follow me, Mr. Spigot. Please stand there. Now, Mr. Spigot, you are, I believe, auditioning for the part of Tarzan." "Right." Mr. Spigot, I could hardly help noticing that almost at once that you are a one-legged person. "Yeah, that's right." "You noticed that?" "Well, I noticed that, Mr. Spigot, when you have been in the business as long as I have, you get to notice these little things, almost instinctively. Now, Mr. Spigot, you, a one-legged man, are applying for the role of Tarzan, a role which traditionally involves the use of a two-legged actor." "Yeah, correct." "And yet you, a uni-dexter, are applying for the role." Right, a role for which two legs would seem to be the minimum requirement." "Yeah, very true. Well, Mr. Spigot, I need to point out to you that your deficiency lies in regard to landing the role. Need I say with overmuch emphasis that it is in the leg division that you are deficient." The leg division. The leg division, Mr. Spigot, you are deficient in it to the tune of 1. Your right leg, I like. I like your right leg. It's a lovely leg for the role. I've got nothing against your right leg. The trouble is, neither have you. And so it goes on. So I love that. I've got a little bit more time, not much more. I think I'm going to do this as a separate cabaret. I think that I'd like to share with you the Dud and Pete discussions. You remember that Peter created a character called Sir Arthur Strebe Giebling, and Dudley, who is being Dud, said, "Well, I'm talking once again to Sir Arthur Strebe Giebling." "Strebe Giebling, well, I said that. Yes, I know, you're absolutely correct. How long have you been interested in flowers?" said Dudley. "From my early days. I was found under a gooseberry bush, and I've been caught up in flora ever since," said Sir Arthur. "I must say you have a marvellous collection, Sir Arthur Strebe Giebling." "Must you really?" "Yes, it's down in the script." Arthur Strebe Giebling, "This is where I keep my hydrangeas. Oh, and a few low drangers. Over there, my private specimens, the Queen's Park Rangers." And Dudley says, "I wonder if we could see your dwarf chrysanthemums." And Peter says, "Depends on your eyesight. We can have a look. They are tiny, aren't they?"
And then Dudley says, well, some of your experiments, Sir Arthur, have aroused controversy in botanical circles. Yes, they have, but let us remember that they sneered at Isaac Newton when an apple fell on his head and he invented gravity. They laughed at Archimedes when he got into the bath, and no one can understand why. The innovator is always a figure of ridicule. So Dudley says, so you feel you're ahead of your time? And Sir Arthur Stream-Greebling says, yes, I was the first man to try to get lime juice out of roses. But of course my main passion is in the field of what I call floribunda, teaching flowers to walk. So much more. Remember the genius. Probably the funniest man that I've ever met.